West Virginia, the little Appalachian town with a big monster history. It's home to one of America's most notorious legends, Mothman. Described as a humanoid creature with massive wings and glowing red eyes, this man with wings was first spotted in this area in the 1960s.
The Mothman, a particularly interesting speck of culture that fell off the acid tab of the psychedelic 60s. The Mothman sightings of Point Pleasant are equal parts horrific as they are ludicrous. I mean, a Mothman? What are we fighting here? Many documentaries on the topic vamp heavily on horror aesthetic, dramatizing and sensationalizing in some fruitless pursuit of legitimacy, and that's fine, but I can't help but think of 1950s horror. Adam West's Batman was particularly notable at the time and lended the Mothman its namesake, but I was hooked. Why have the Mothman sightings persisted for so long in American culture? What is it like to reside in a town so small yet so famous for something so ridiculous? And to what truths does the Mothman story lend us, of mythology and humanity? So, to Point Pleasant I went. The streets were clean, the air was crisp, and the town was wholly American. Some generous folk at the world's only Mothman Museum had agreed to answer some of my questions. So there, I headed first.
Well, the first major sighting took place on November 15th, 1966. And the two couples, the Scarberrys and the Mallets, were driving out in the TNT area, which it was a huge complex during World War II where they made explosives for the war effort. But most of the buildings had been torn down, but there was one still standing, the Old North Power Plant. Well, they were driving by the Old North Power Plant, and Linda Scarberry saw this thing in the road, and she said, "What's that man doing there?" Well, that man, his wings spread about 10 feet, and he had red glowing eyes, and kind of shuffled off toward the North Power Plant, and they got the hell out of there. And this thing chased them through the air into Point Pleasant. Now, that was described as something that was roughly humanoid, about 6 to 7 feet tall, red glowing eyes, 10-foot wingspan.
And that sort of kicked off just a rash of sightings, like all through the end of 1966, 1967, and it wasn't just teenagers hanging out in the woods. It was school teachers, it was your grandma, it was the vacuum cleaner salesman, it was everybody. And then on December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge that connected Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio actually collapsed and over 40 people died, and then everything stopped. So some people definitely took it seriously in that it was some kind of omen or it had some sort of demonic significance. So people were definitely taking it seriously, but there were also people who were dismissive of it for the same reason.
I've talked to some of the people that live around here now, and they said back in those days, you just, if you had something bizarre like that happen to you, you just kept your mouth shut because of the ridicule, and the people just wouldn't accept it.
It was the 60s. It was a time where, anything that was unfamiliar to Point Pleasant was the result of hippie culture. Point Pleasant was not very similar to the rest of the country in the 60s. This wasn't really a place where people were going out dropping acid or, moving to communes, things like that.
Well, I don't believe Mothman, that whatever it was, caused these things. But it's people think of the Mothman in time and space with the horrible bridge tragedy.
All of the Mothman activity happened at a very significant time for Point Pleasant in the country. There was a lot of change happening in the country, a lot of social change. There is a lot of symbolism in the fact that Mothman is considered a harbinger of doom or like an omen, like a lot of bird type figures are in different types of mythology. And then the Silver Bridge did collapse, which caused a lot of problems for the town. It caused the highway to be redirected around the entire town. You used to have to come through town, and now people just drive straight by it. It affected the economy, it affected people's livelihoods, and in a way, the end of the Mothman sightings, the buildup of Mothman, and then the ultimate end with the bridge collapse, I feel like it was very symbolic of significant change. But it has put Point Pleasant on the world stage, and the tourism certainly does help a lot of people. It gets people coming to town, people patronize all the local businesses.
For a long time, they resisted the museum and so forth. But more recently, the townspeople seem to have embraced the Mothman.
Whether people like it or not, Mothman is very good for Point Pleasant. It's like a wealth for expression. It's a wealth of expression and just fun. But also, you know.
We have a Mothman festival every year, every third weekend of September, and it brings in thousands of people. It has really revitalized the town. And people just have fun with it too, you know. Some people are very serious about being paranormal researchers. Others are just for the fun of it.
So in that way, I think it's been very valuable, meeting different people, introducing different ideas, experiences to the town. You know, you might meet someone from France and you've never been able to leave the state. You know, that's a really big deal. It's having a really big impact on connecting Point Pleasant with the rest of the world, which I think is invaluable.
And that was it, right? My story, my answers. But I had a nagging thought. What about the TNT area?
It was a huge complex during World War II where they made explosives.
Doing my journalistic duties, I decided to head over. It was a heavily forested area, and unfortunately, I got lost. But the Mothman take it, and the Mothman give it the way. Into the Holy Grail I was led. Bingo, I said, an old bunker. And inside this old military bunker, I found something horrifying. A little Mothman fetus. No, I'm kidding. What I did find were signs of humanity. Lowbrow graffiti adorned every wall. I think there's something special about fart jokes written on a military bunker. Sure, the Mothman sightings happened, but I don't think their legitimacy is the point. The point is that a small, out-of-the-way town got to form community, benefit monetarily, and become a footnote in the large volume that is our American history. People from abroad, different states and backgrounds, all here. From the ashes of an unexplainable monster and the very real tragedy of the Silver Bridge collapse rises a small Appalachian town, not united by grief, but by fun, BDSM fan art, and community, and all of it thanks to the wonderful, mystical, and ridiculous Mothman.